I've been asked to share my spiritual journey. It is probably a bit different to a lot of people. It's important to not compare yourself to any other person. Sometimes our ideas about self-realization is people like Eckhart Tolle. Just one day they miraculously awoke and then just stayed awake. That is not the norm, I'd say. It's often more cyclical. It's like a breathing in and out of sort of awakening and then being identified with this movie play again, and then just opening up to new insights and experiences. I feel that my journey has probably been a very, what you would call a full-on hardcore one, as in it's not been easy for me to understand certain concepts. So the nice ways, maybe the normal ways that people wake up hasn't worked for me. So it's like the universe has just thrown all sorts of horrible experiences and trauma into the picture to really shake me about, to get me to waking up. Because I started already as a young child, for as long as I can remember, I was questioning why I'm here, what's the meaning of it all. And also I felt really strange being in this 3D plane and this earth and this world, because to me, my dreams that I had at night, they were more real to me than this world. I would often fly. I could go anywhere in the world or in the universe. I could talk to animals. I felt so at peace, and everything was just more vivid, more alive, and it felt more heavy and almost like a dream to be in this so-called reality. So that was quite confusing for me for a lot of years. And I remember I just looking up at the stars at night and feeling that maybe it was a mistake, like maybe I shouldn't even be here. It felt like I belonged somewhere else. My first experience of total oneness, of divine love, I mean, it's impossible to put words on it. You can't explain it with words, and the mind can't understand. But if you've had that experience, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It happened when I was about 14. And 2 of them happened probably within 2 weeks' time. And it was so profound and so strong that it affected me for the rest of my life. Because when you've had a taste for that, you know that that's how it's supposed to be. That's who you really are. And then you want to go back to that. So I did everything in my power to get back to that. I tried all sorts of meditations and retreats and practices and teachings to get me back to that. And yes, many times I experienced that again. I was very lucky that in my early 20s, I got to meet this beautiful spiritual teacher. Her name was Patricia, in Queensland, Australia. And she's this beautiful woman that I got to meditate with. And what was so special about her sessions, you could say, is that it was in her home. She didn't charge anything because she didn't need to economically. You just got there and you sat still in quiet meditation for an hour. And that was it, in her presence, in her energy. And that was incredible. And then at the end, she'd normally just have little spiritual story that she would tell, that she learned from her Japanese master. And I've had a lot of things happen in my life. It's like, even if you'd spread it out over 300 years, it would still be a very eventful life. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but I've had a lot happen, a lot of different periods. Sometimes it feels like I've lived different lives in this lifetime. And some of them some of these insights have been very profound. I remember also in my early 20s, the first time I went to these Friday night meditation sessions in the rainforest, where I also met Pat for the first time, but she was not the one organizing it. It was the Tibetan monks chanting on a tape. And it was very loud. And I was just sitting in still meditation. And I had this Kundalini rising. I had all these body orgasms. I've never heard about them before. I didn't even know what they were. And I was like, whoa. And then about some months later, the Tibetan monks came to Cairns, where I was at, and I got to meditate with them for over a week, maybe it was 2 weeks. And that was also a very beautiful, powerful experience for me. Also, something else that affected me greatly was time in India with, they called Amman Bhagavan, the Oneness temple, but that was in the very, very early days before they built the so-called temple. And I got to meet Bhagavan directly quite a few times. And there as well, I had these profound spiritual insights, but more so just realizations, just knowing, just that the oneness, that everything is love. I've also had a lot of what many people will call supernatural experiences in my life. And they can be a bit tricky to explain. Maybe we're going to that another time. I also do have a vindictive ex that will try to, to use anything that I say as a weapon against me. So I'm not going to go into talking about my experiences with abuse or some of my more supernatural experiences. That is not the time now. But, so even though I've had all these beautiful, full-on spiritual insights, it never really did stick with me for any length of time. Sometimes it was a few weeks or a few months, but it was not permanent. Then, some years ago, I had the worst experience of my life. And I was thrown into severe post-traumatic stress. I was terrified and utterly heartbroken and sad and confused. It was just so much, like a lot. And in that, I was also extremely restricted on, as in, I didn't really have much choice on what to do. My life was extremely restricted. It was like I was in a vice. But that also pushed me to realize that the only thing I have is the present moment. The only thing I have. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, I have to become friends with it. And not make it my enemy or not wish for something else. So if I can become friends with the present moment and be as present, consciously aware of the present moment as often as possible, I could feel that that was the key. And then I started to have these moments of complete and utter peace in the midst of all these horrible things going on in my life, completely devastating things. I had moments of total love and stillness and peace. And the more I focused on being completely present, the more often I felt like that. And with time, even though my life situation got from bad to worse, I started to feel more at peace. So it was a bizarre contradiction. Yes, of course, I had moments as well where I felt extremely bad, but going into the divine and just sort of refueling love and peace energy made me resilient to all the other things that were going on in my life at the time. And then I had a realization of actually something that I had experienced many, many, many years earlier. First time I got married, I was only 20. And after some years together, my husband, among other things, had been unfaithful and lied about many things and taken drugs behind my back. And there was a lot when I discovered it. And what he did when I confronted him was that he shared a little bit of the truth, and then he looked the most honest and regretful that I'd ever seen him. And he promised that that was all the truth. And I believed him. But then asking the questions in another way, I understood there was a lot more to it, and a lot more, and a lot more. And every time he promised that that was the full truth. And that went on over 2 days, and 7 times he lied to me. And I felt so heartbroken and devastated, because I thought that we were going to be together for the rest of our lives. And that's what we had promised each other. So everything just crumbled. And I felt utter despair. And I was lying on the floor in fetus position. But it was also a time where I previously had meditated a lot. Like a lot. I used to sit many hours a day in meditation. So a part of me got very angry with, like I was, what do you call it? Defying God. It's like, come on, is that all you got? Give it all to me now. And in that sense of welcoming the whole pain, I was completely open for the pain and the suffering in that moment. Oof, it just cancelled itself out. So from utter despair in one moment, the next, I just felt this immense love pouring into my head and into my heart. And I felt like I was just exploding of unconditional love for everything. And I was everything. And it was like, and that lasted for quite a few weeks. So in the midst of this trauma that I experienced some years ago, I remember that. And I remember the importance of welcoming all feelings, of having the courage to feel everything, even the hardest parts. And I realized even though I'd felt a lot of the pain, there were some aspects of it that had been too painful to really feel. So I just decided to welcome it all. But this time, it didn't happen like that. I spent like 24 hours just crying my eyes out. But that's exactly what I needed. Because after that, I felt this huge release, like a huge weight had been lifted from my heart. And after that, my pain never got as bad again. And I started to practice that more, that in moments of great suffering, to just welcome it. And yes, sometimes, poof, it just disappeared. And only love, peace was present. And then the next realization that I had was when I was in court. I had been accused for something I had not done, and I had seen so much corruption and terrible things going on, huge injustices. I was scared. I was supposed to be interrogated in front of, I don't know, maybe 50 people. And I felt this panic attack starting to arise in me. I felt my pulse, and it's like this tingling sensation in my body, and I felt I couldn't breathe, and my heart, it was like my face was just boiling, and I felt, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to even talk. But then I said, wait a minute. If I remove my mind from it, of labeling it as good or bad, or this is this and this is that, and just focus on the feeling. What does it feel like in my body? I just realized it was so similar to like adrenaline, excitement, that having a cup of strong coffee, going like rock climbing or hang gliding or some type of adventurous fun activity that I would happily pay money to do. It was basically the same feeling, but I had associated it with different things. But as soon as I understood that, it just disappeared and I only felt complete peace. And it lasted for the rest of the day. So my greatest advice to anyone on the spiritual path, regardless of what path you have, is to have the courage to feel all the emotions and to be present as often as possible. Like fully present, not scrolling on social media, not engaged with your thoughts about future or past, but just to really just land here. And of course, it's always easier to do it in nature. And many times if you do it in a group setting with other people meditating, it can also give you a boost, help you. And for a lot of people that are extremely stressed, have a nervous system that is out of whack and due to trauma, it's recommended, well, not recommended, but it makes it easier to meditate if you calm your nervous system first. And you can do that through so many different ways. But through breathing exercises, pranayama, through tapping and vagal toning, there is a lot you can do. If you do that before, it's easier then to just land and be present. So yes, even though I know who I am on a deep level, I still have doubts sometimes. I still get confused. I still get caught up in ego things. But it's like I do it and at the same time I see that I do it. So it's like a paradox, like a contradiction almost. I can see it and I can still sometimes do it. And what I've also noticed is that the suffering doesn't go as deep or last for as long. Or actually it's more like pain, I guess. Yeah, it's more, instead of the suffering I felt before, it's more like a pain that's hitting me in the moment. And if I look at the pain and I feel it there and then, it sort of like passes through rather than accumulating baggage that you carry around or like something that you won't try to resist, because it's that resistance that creates the suffering. And I feel that it's not so much talked about in our society today, the importance of daring to feel bad, because so much is focused on we have to be feeling good all the time and we have to strive to feel good and to be happy, to be successful. But if we can stop and daring to feel that which is painful, it helps a lot. Also a little warning, because if you are not used to meditating, if you're not used to sitting with yourself in stillness and feeling your feelings, if you're not used to observing your thoughts but you get carried away by them, maybe you should start by smaller things, as in instead of starting when you feel total despair, maybe when you feel a bit, frustrated or a bit sad instead of suicidal, a bit angry instead of you're about to kill someone, because it can be overwhelming. And if you don't have the tools to sort of calm your nervous system and to not engage in your thoughts, it might be counterproductive. So beware as well. It's not one solution fits all. It takes a bit of preparation to not go into some type of destructive mindset that then it will be even harder to get out of. Because the key is, when you do these things, when you feel your emotions, either the pure emotion or in your physical body, how it manifests, the key is to not get caught up in your thoughts about it. Because if you do, you can get into some type of loop that it's hard to get out of. And then it's not beneficial. It's only beneficial if you don't add fuel to the fire. If you have any questions about it, feel free to write it in the comments. I'll try to answer as good as I can. I want to remind you that you are your best teacher. You are your own guru. You have all the answers within you. Do not ever feel like some spiritual teacher has all the answers. They can inspire you. They can maybe point you in the right direction, but you have to walk your path. And that is not the same as anyone else's path. Lots of love. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it.